to see today's video because I'm sharing with you some awesome DIY room decor ideas that you can make this weekend at home, and they are totally going to transform the total vibe of your room. Honestly, I cannot be happier with how these DIYs turned out. So I have recently changed up the theme of my room, and I took that as the perfect excuse to create some new room decor. Honestly, the DIYs in this video are probably my favorite that I have ever created, which is saying something. I've done a lot of DIY room decor, but I can definitely say that this is my favorite. Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy, and I can't wait for you to see how everything turns out. And I hope that you create some of these DIYs yourself at home and totally switch up your room, have some fun, make some DIYs. Let's jump into it. The first thing I wanted to share with you is how I created this awesome floral wall above my bed. As you can see, I had quite an empty space here and I really wanted to create a feature, so I decided to make a floral backdrop. So to do this, I first had to find some floral garland, and I looked around for a little while until I found the perfect floral garland. I love the roses on this one. They're kind of an off-white, which really goes with the color scheme of my boho inspired room. I then attached these to a piece of rod which I had stained with a dark timber stain, and I just used the little plastic loop which had the price tag on it. They all had it, and I thought this was the easiest way to hang up the garland. And as you can see, I've just spaced them evenly along the piece of rod, and then I just placed this on some removable hooks, and as you can see, it looks so amazing and it's totally transformed that entire wall. The first DIY are these adorable charm jars. These are so easy to create, and they're actually really fun to make as well. So first you're going to need some old glass jars. I've just recycled these, and then you're also going to need some rope or string. I've also got some leather strap that's used for jewelry. I've got some macrame cord, and then you're also going to need some charms. So I found most of these charms in the jewelry making section of a craft store, but I also found some super discounted earrings in a jewelry shop. And as you can see, they have the most adorable little sun charms hanging off the hoop earrings. So I was able to really easily take these off, and it was a super unique charm. So I thought that was such a cool idea. So what I did was attach the charm to whatever kind of rope or string I was using for that jar. As you can see here, I'm using a super long piece of brown leather jewelry cord. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called. It just looked super rustic and I loved the vibe, and I thought that it would go really well with this charm as well as the jar that I picked. I then hot glued on the piece of rope just so it would stay in place, and started wrapping the cord around and around the top of the jar. As you can see, I've covered the whole top, and then I just secured it at the back with a little bit of hot glue, and then I just cut off any excess cord. And as you can see, we have the most adorable little jar that was so quick and easy to make. Here I'm making another one, but I actually layered two charms. I thought that this would look really cool, and these again were from earrings. Such a good find. Now, a really helpful tip when making these jars is to actually sticky tape the charms onto the jar while you're gluing the little piece of string on. This will just support the weight of the charms, and it will make it a lot easier to work with the string and to wrap it around. And then at the end, you can just easily remove the sticky tape. And I love these jars so much. Very quick and easy to make. I made quite a few, and I've just filled mine with little pebbles and some little succulents and feathers and just some greenery to add to my dressing table. It's an awesome way to recycle old jars, and I love the mismatched look. They're all different sizes and shapes, but I think that makes them more quirky, and it definitely adds to the effect. Up next, it was time to create a new garland for the new theme that I have in my room. I used to have a super colorful tassel garland, but I wanted something a little bit more neutral and kind of boho-ish, so I decided to do a beaded garland. So first, I found a bunch of wooden beads in all different sizes. So I have some round ones, and then I also found these really unique geometric beads, and I definitely wanted to incorporate these into my garland. So once deciding on my bead pattern, I decided to paint all of the geometric beads white just to add a pop of color and to break up the pattern even more. So I just hand painted all of them because I could not find white beads like this anywhere. So yes, I stood there and hand painted all of them, but it was fun. I just stood there and talked to my mum the entire time. Moving on, it's time to make the tassels, and you guys know I love making tassels. So you will need some wool, and I went with a dusty pink, which goes with the theme of my room, scissors, a little tassel template, which is a piece of cardboard, and some straws. So here you can see a piece of cardboard, and there I just marked out the length of the tassel. So to make a tassel, I feel like it's just easier to watch what I'm doing than to explain it, but you want to basically place a piece of wool along the top and then just start wrapping your wool around as many times as you like. So this will be how thick your tassel will be. And then taking that piece of wool that we first placed at the top of the cardboard, we're going to tie that off, and then we're going to carefully take the wool off our template, cut it in half so it looks like, this always reminds me of doll's hair. I feel like it should be sitting on top of a doll. But then we're going to take our straw, put the straw in the middle, fold the wool over, tie it off. I feel like it's honestly just easier to watch what I'm doing, but it's so easy, and once you get the hang of it, it's so much fun, and I just make them while I'm watching TV. Once you have made all of the tassels, just go ahead and start trimming them so they're all the same length, and make sure you're paying attention when you're doing this so you don't accidentally cut yourself. I did not even know that this was possible, but I found a way to injure myself.
Oops.
Yes, that did hurt, and now I'm going to be wearing a band-aid for most of this video, but just make sure you're paying attention. I don't know, I always find a way to injure myself, even when I'm making a wool tassel. Anyway, moving on, once you've made all your tassels, it's time to assemble the garland. So just start threading the beads on, and I followed a particular pattern so that it would look more uniformed. And now it's time to put on the tassels. So to do this, because we have that straw, it's so easy. Just thread the string through the straw and then remove the straw, and now your tassel is on your garland, and it was super easy. And then once I was happy with how it was looking, I just tied it off, and I attached this to the top of my bed. And I love that it incorporates that dusty pink color that I have going throughout my room, and I also love the beads that I decided to use, and I think it's really simple to make but has a really effective look to it, and I'm obsessed with it. Up next, we're going to be creating an adorable trinket dish, and not only does this look so cute, but it's really practical and you can make it totally unique to your bedroom. So for this, you're going to need some oven baked clay and also some clay shaping tools. And actually, I'm pretty sure some of these tools are cake decorating tools. They just work perfectly for clay as well. So first, I'm just warming up the clay in my hands to make it easier to work with, and then I'm going to roll it out as evenly as possible. With this trinket dish, I did not want any part of it to be perfect. I wanted it to look as handmade, as rustic, imperfect as possible, and this was actually so much fun to make, and I seriously had the best time creating it. So I decided that this would look awesome with a leaf print in the middle. So I took this wooden leaf, I think it's a piece of chipboard. I found it in the craft section. I think it's used for scrapbooking, but it made the perfect template for my leaf. And as you can see here, I'm just making a super random geometric pattern. Once I was happy with the design, I just baked the clay in the oven following the instructions, and then I also decided to make some short little feet for it. I felt like this was going to add a lot to it. It was going to elevate it, and I just loved the look of this. So here is my baked dish, and now it needs some paint. So I just had so much fun painting this. I really wanted it to look as, like I said, rustic as possible. I wanted it to have a watercolor look to it. So to do that, I used sponges, paper towel, even my fingers. As you can see here, I'm using a sponge to just scrape some of the paint off, just to make it look a little bit more lived in, not as perfect. And this definitely was the most fun part. I had so much fun doing all the different shading, and as you can see here, here's my finished pink and green little jewelry dish. Totally adorable, and it goes with my room so well. And then I just sealed it in with a clay glaze, and then my jewelry dish was all ready. I love the pop of green from the leaf, and every step of making this was so much fun, and I'm so happy with how it turned out, and it totally goes with everything in my room. Now for my favorite DIY of them all. I cannot wait to show you how easy these are to make, but I think they are so effective, and we are going to be making some decorative trays. So I found these untreated wooden trays in a craft store. They were so cheap, they were on sale, and I felt like they needed a complete transformation. So I did 2 different trays, and the first tray I decided to stain a super dark wood color. I used the same stain that I used for my flower wall, just so that it would tie everything in. Then I just made sure that I protected all of my surfaces. I put on gloves because we are going to be working with a stain, and I would recommend that you do this outside. Then I took a super old rag and I just started placing the stain on the wood. So I just would get a tiny bit at a time. Honestly, the smallest amount went the longest way, and I just started kind of brushing this onto the tray. It looked very rustic and I loved the end result. As you can see, it looks totally different already. For the design in the middle of the tray, I'm going to be using a stencil, so I'm just cutting it down to fit and then attaching it with some painter's tape. And then I'm using these little sponges to apply the paint, and I'm making sure that I don't add too much paint, and to do that I'm using a dry sponge to pick up any excess paint to make sure that it's more of a wash-up color instead of a super block color. Again, I want it to look more rustic and lived in. Then it's time for the super nerve-wracking but also super satisfying part where you peel the stencil off and see if everything worked out, and I could not be happier with how it looked. Then I decided that it needed something else, so I went in with this ribbon tassel, and as you can see, it's such a beautiful color. There's some blue and some red, and I just loved the overall look of it. Now for the next tray, I decided that I wanted to go in a completely different direction. So taking some painter's tape, I just placed this around the inside line of the tray to make sure that when I was painting the base of the tray, it wouldn't leak up onto the sides. I really wanted the line to be as crisp as possible. I wanted the base of this tray to be pink, but I didn't want a solid pink. I wanted it to have some texture and definition. So I'm using some different tools that I wouldn't normally use for painting. I'm using, here is a dishwashing sponge. I'm also using some super old paintbrushes that are very dry and bristly, but they gave it a textured look. And I would just go in with different shades of pink as well as some white just to add definition. I did not want this to look perfect. I wanted it to look like it was done with a watercolor based paint, but I was using acrylic paint, if that makes sense. It was so much fun seeing it come to life, and as you can see here, there's a lot of definition going on. Once I was happy with it, I peeled the tape off, and as you can see, the line is so crisp, and it also meant that I could be a little bit messy with my painting, and it looks so awesome already. Then going in with a different stencil, I feel like this stencil is a little bit fancier, and again with the same technique of sponging on the paint and removing excess with a clean sponge. I'm just going around and filling it all in and then removing the stencil, which is honestly the most satisfying part. I want to make more things like this just so I can peel the stencil off and see the art underneath. So here is the tray, and then to finish off this tray, I just went in with another tassel ribbon, but this one is white. The tassels are definitely optional, but I feel like it added so much to the tray. It added another texture. It's a way to add some more color, and it makes them look more expensive. I feel like it gave them a store-bought vibe, and I could not be happier with how they both turned out. They're so different, but very practical. I placed my books on them, crystals, plants, my coffee, and I cannot wait to make more. So that brings us to the end of this DIY room decor video. I hope you loved all of these DIYs just as much as I did. I love you all so much. I cannot wait to see you in my next video. Thank you for watching, and bye!